Hello viewers, welcome to ZABFM Digital. I'm your host Murtaza Halai and I welcome you to HR Pavilion Season 2 brought to you by Dr. Kamran Sumro. So today हम बात करेंगे about Gen Zs in the workforce. Now being a Gen Z myself, एक बहुत ना you have to face this issue कि Gen Z हो तो काम के अंदर जो है like बहुत demanding है हम, ठीक है, हमारी बहुत सारी जो है वो like people around us जो कॉर्पोरेट इंडस्ट्री के जो बाबे बैठे हुए हैं ना, they have to deal with it. They think that it's a pressure, it's an added pressure to deal with our generation. So आज we're going to discuss about Gen Z in the workforce, and to discuss this topic I have with me a very esteemed guest, a very special one as well. He is a faculty member at ZABIST, esteemed member of the industry as well. He has been working over 10 years now. Without any further ado, I'll introduce Hasnian Muhammadi. Yes, Hasnian, how are you?
I am well. Thank you, Murtaza, for having me today.
So Hasnian, as I said, it's a big issue, Gen Zs in the workforce. तो एक बड़ा मसला है कि from people in our generation, typically बाबे बैठे हैं इंडस्ट्री के अंदर, उनको लगता है कि यार हम मतलब सिर्फ डिमांडिंग है, हमारी सिर्फ हम सिर्फ प्रॉब्लम्स क्रिएट करते हैं. एंड दिस फनी इंसिडेंट हैपेंड एट वर्क द अदर डे, एंड उसके अंदर बोला गया था कि यार किसी समवन प्रॉम्प्टेड के व्हाट इज द वन फ्रेज और अ टर्म दैट जेन जी यूज वेरी ऑफन. सो किसी ने जवाब दिया वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस, एंड दैट्स ट्रू, वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस शुड बी फॉर एवरीबॉडी, बट दीज इस तरह के अल्फाज, इस तरह की फ्रेजेस, इस तरह के टोन्स जो है ना, इज डायरेक्टेड टुवर्ड्स जेन जी. इवन ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस are having sessions on how to deal with Gen Z. I don't understand. I fail to understand why it is the big deal. So हम जाते हैं उसके अंदर, लेकिन पहले I would want you to introduce yourself.
Sure. So I've been working in digital advertising for a little more than a decade. I've worked in a number of organizations, and right now I'm also working at a big multinational, and working with very esteemed brands as well. इसके अलावा I am also visiting faculty at ZABFM. इससे पहले I've been visiting faculty at some other institutions as well, and I'm teaching e-commerce to ZABFM final year students right now. And yeah, that's about
Okay, like good, like I super experience, I tell you. So how would you describe, obviously you're a director, you would have a team of people working with you. I'm assuming mostly like younger generation, millennials, early millennials or Gen Z. So in your experience, how it has been working with Gen Zs, managing Gen Zs, how has it been like?
So I like to think that the Gen Z and the definition of Gen Z is a bit confusing for a lot of people, because Google would say, people are born after a certain year would classify as Gen Z. And 97, right? And we like to think, okay, everyone born after January 1st, 1997 is Gen Z. And anyone born on 31st December 1996 is a millennial. But effectively, there is no difference between the two people, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't really be a different person by being a day older.
Yeah.
So I think there are certain things which overlap between millennials and Gen Z, and even if we look at the previous generations who have come in the world, I think some things have been consistent in each generation. It's just that the way the world looks at them is different. So I think the first thing I would like to highlight is something that I've learned from my childhood is generational gaps. Right. So when I was a kid, back in, let's say, the late 90s or the early 2000s, right, I used to think that my parents don't get me, or my elder cousins or my elder siblings are very different from who or what I am, right? And I used to think, यार मैं जो हूँ बहुत अलग किस्म का इंसान हूँ,
Interesting.
और मेरे needs और मेरे desires जो है वो बहुत different है, because I am part of the internet generation, right? And I have access to information a lot more freely than the people who are older than me used to have. So immediately ना वो एक thought जाता है यार कि ये इन लोगों को नहीं पता. I know better.
Obviously.
ठीक है. And I think this is something which has been common in millennials when we entered the workforce, let's say 10, 12 years ago. And it's also the same in the people who have now been entering the workforce, let's say post-COVID era, 21 or 2020 and after that, right? इसकी बहुत सिंपल सी वजह है समझने के लिए. देखें, इंटरनेट इज, आई लाइक टू कॉल इट द ग्रेट इक्वलाइजर ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, राइट? जब हम स्कूल में जाते थे और जब हम अपने किसी टीचर की तरफ देखते थे, सो वी यूज्ड टू थिंक दैट दिस पर्सन इज द सोर्स ऑफ नॉलेज फॉर अस, राइट? और हमें अगर राइट knowledge, your right education चाहिए, so this person or this institution is the one that is going to provide us that. Ab, because of internet and widespread access of the internet, that has become, those lines have become blurry.
Obviously.
Right. There is also a debate in some corners or in some circles कि, you know, is a university degree even relevant anymore in this world, right? So Google ने भी पाकिस्तान में जो है बहुत सारे professional certifications introduce कर दिए in the last couple of years who allow people to just get technical expertise of a certain let's say industry, and based on their credentials they can go out and seek out work. And internationally, you must have heard of a couple of companies जिन्होंने इन programs को launch भी कर दिया कि you don't need to have a university degree anymore. If you know what you do, we'll hire you.
बिल्कुल.
But it's also important to think कि university is more than just a degree.
Yeah.
It's an experience,
Yes.
right? And I like to think that very much क्योंकि university मुझे सिर्फ knowledge नहीं देती, मुझे रहने का और जीने का सलीका सिखाता.
बिल्कुल ऐसे ही है.
ठीक है. So I get to learn how to be with people, how to talk in between them, how to carry myself, how to be confident around people, right? How to sell myself, you know.
Absolutely.
All of these skills are very essential when you enter the workforce, right? And I think this is something that people sort of do not consider as important as knowing the technical side of the work, right? And back when I was a youngster, let's say when I was 24, I used to think that technical knowledge, you know, outranks everything
Absolutely.
in life. You know, मैं अगर अपने काम में सबसे ज़्यादा माहिर हूँ, मुझे दुनिया की हर सक्सेस मिल जाएगी और मैं सबसे आगे निकल जाऊँगा. But
That's not the case.
later on in the career and in my life, I realized, you know, that is very different from what the real world is all about. You know, in the real world, you have to be a person who can mingle, who can coexist, who can collaborate. You
Very
know,
important.
with others around you, and this is where I think the key difference in Gen Z comes alive, you know, because of the internet and because of the access to information that everyone has, you know, a lot of people feel that they know better, right? That, you know, because influencers इतने सारे हैं और content creators इतने सारे हैं who are traveling, who are exploring and who are sharing their perspective, you know, and it's very easy for someone to sit, let's say, in Karachi and watch an Australian blogger traveling in Indonesia, कि, you know, Bali is the place to be, and यहाँ पे आके आप काम कर रहे हैं and you know you are living the life that everyone would dream of, right? And it's very easy to get into that mindset कि यार, okay, if that person can do this, even I can do this, right? But हम sometimes ये सोचना भूल जाते हैं कि यार what is our current situation and where we are in,
अपनी
right?
realities, yes.
अपनी realities. And then उसकी वजह से हमें समझते हैं कि यार कोई अगर हमें बोल रहा है ना कि नहीं तुम ये नहीं कर सकते तो ये गलत बोल रहा है, क्योंकि वो बंदा मुझे कह रहा है जो YouTube पे एक वीडियो बना रहा है या Instagram पे एक स्टोरी या रील बना रहा है कि यार तुम कर सकते हो, मैं कर सकता हूँ, तुम भी कर सकते हो. Yes, in an ideal world anyone can do anything, and I would like everyone to think like that, you know, you have every ability and a God given right to do whatever you want to, but you also have to realize ke what are your circumstances and what are the current capabilities you have, and you have to build yourself
Yes.
to a
Agreed.
certain level, right? And this is something which I feel that the younger people who enter the workforce today sort of fail to really grab in their minds. You know, everything is a journey. Nothing happens instantly.
Yeah.
If there is a 21-year-old Australian blogger traveling the world because he can and because he has the ability to earn money while he's traveling, so can you. But then you belong to a Pakistani society. Do you have the ability to minus yourself from your household and then travel the world? Do you have the ability to change the way your society exists,
Yeah.
your society lives, right? It's okay to think that you can, but then you also have to consider, you know, you have to coexist with everyone. If you are a square in a round peg, you will never go through. You will
Yeah.
always get stuck, right?
Brilliant example.
And because of that, you know, we have these differences that people sometimes assume that, oh, जो so called बुढ़े बाबे बैठे हुए हैं उनको क्या पता कि मेरे challenges क्या हैं. Yeah. I like to think experience teaches you a lot,
Agreed.
right? And I think the more time you spend in a certain environment, the more wise you get,
Yes.
right? And I
Fair
think
point.
the wiser you get, the more able you are to make a more informed decision about certain things.
I completely agree with your point, and yes, this is a perspective, like very well said, ke in terms of you have to coexist, so you have to understand where the other person is coming from. And I have experienced it so many times ke let's say कि I'm in a work setting और हम काम कर रहे हैं और let's say कि अगले का एक there is this one individual जिसका एक opinion है और मेरा एक counter opinion है. So we are a generation of motivational speaking, like motivational speakers ourselves, and also we follow it a lot. So हम जो है हमेशा जो है वो emotionally बहुत charged रहते हैं. तो ये तो I accept totally कि this is an issue with the entire generation, not with like I'm not gonna say कि पूरी generation, but they are like the majority जो है ना वो काफ़ी emotionally charged है कि भाई ज़रा सा कुछ हो गया तो फ़ौरन जो है वो बह जाएंगे. तो ये तो एक मसला है, and I completely agree with your point कि हमें it's very important for us to make sure कि we listen and understand other people's opinions, why they are the way they are and why they are saying what they are saying. So yeah, I agree. I will take this point and I will apply this कि experience is something that is more important rather than just knowing that you can do it.
But I'll add one more thing over here. So one very good thing you said, you will listen more. But it goes both ways. So the elder generation has to also listen to Gen Z. Because see, we have to accept that we live in a different world now. And any generation, whether that is millennials or Gen Z or even Gen Alpha, which is going to be the new, right? What is shaping their thought process? It's not a certain person, it's not a certain, let's say, quote or any phrase, it's the world around them. जो हमसे पहले जो Gen Y जिसे आप कहते हैं, ठीक है, I think Gen Y, okay, Gen X, जिसमें मेरे पेरेंट्स शामिल थे, तुम्हारे भी पेरेंट्स शायद शामिल थे, ठीक है, उनका जो एक्सेस था ना टू इंफॉर्मेशन वाज टीवी. सही है. सो whatever they saw on TV, they accepted that as the truth of the world, beyond what they experienced in the real life. When the internet came and when people got a real more insight into how, let's say, other cultures live, how other people live, तो उनको obviously एक थोड़ा सा broader perspective मिला. And then obviously Gen Z के साथ जो लोग बड़े हुए, and when there is literally no filter now on the internet, right? So they are trying to seek out what is the right answer to a lot of questions that you have in life. What is that age where I decide I can buy my first car, or what is that age where my father cannot question my decisions anymore, or what is that age where I actually go and live out my life the way I really want to, and these questions would be different for everyone, and the answers would be different for everyone, right? But it is also important to understand कि जो older generation है, they also understand कि how a certain generation is growing up, what is molding their minds, and this is where the outreach comes to play, where we see a lot of companies and a lot of HR personnel and the leadership in a lot of companies talking about how to ensure that the Gen Zers stay motivated, or let's say how to ensure that they stay committed to a company or to their roles, right? And this is, I think, a very great practice that I never saw in my time. When I was in my early years of the career, I never saw anyone who reached out to me and said, "Hi Hasnan, we acknowledge that you are new to the workforce, let us know what are your challenges, let us know what are your thought processes," right? So in a lot of ways, the Gen Z is lucky enough to get that.
Maybe you're bringing that culture in कि हमने इतना पैनिक क्रिएट कर दिया कि वो कल्चर लेके आना.
I don't really know, and I'll accept that I don't have enough insight to really pinpoint how and why this started, but it is obviously important to acknowledge the fact that it's happening, and it's also important to acknowledge that if people are talking about these things, then they are thinking about it as well, and they are considering that what makes a Gen Zer tick, what helps them stay motivated, what helps them stay committed to a cause, and what helps them be more comfortable in their surroundings. You talked about work-life balance very early on in the session, and I'll tell you, this is something that not just Gen Z, this is something that everyone aspires for. A person who is even retired today would have aspired for a work-life balance in his whole life, but I think you create your work-life balance. Look, I work with a lot of people who are young age at 23 to 25, right? And some of them have jobs which are very demanding. And I always ask them one simple question. If you were not working for a company and if you had your own business right now, would that work-life balance exist? No.
Absolutely
Because work-life balance exists in your mind. There's no physical, tangible way to create a work-life balance. You work for something as much as you own that. Because if you have your own business, you own it completely, and its success or its failure is completely dependent on your effort, right? And I always like to ask them, if you can show this ownership for your business, why not for your job, right? I'm not saying work late, work weekends. That will be determined by the industry you are in. That will be determined by the field of work you are in. For example, I work in advertising. Advertising has the stigma कि वहाँ पे तो जही late sittings तो होनी ही है, weekends तो काम करना ही है, life तो होनी ही नहीं है. ठीक है यार, it's a reality. I won't shy away from it कि advertising as an industry has been like this for a long time now. But if as a youngster, if you are running your own agency, would you have the same complaint?
No, I could never.
Not really, right? Because you chose this industry to begin with, right? Now changing the industry is a separate discussion altogether, right? But then advertising is not the only industry which has this culture. Startups in Pakistan have a very tough and demanding culture, and then doctors, who do residencies, they have a very demanding work commitment as well. So the work-life balance is something that everyone has struggled with, in their lives. I 10 years ago, my parents 20 years ago, my grandparents 50 years ago. I think everyone would have struggled it some way or the other. Yes, if you have a head start, if God has been kind to your family and if you have had a head start, you can get it more easily than others. But then again, you make your own path in life. Right, you can choose to accept that work-life balance and take it forward the way you want to, or if you want to stand on your own 2 feet, then you create your own work-life balance in whichever way you want to. I mean, Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or Bill Gates and all of these, billionaires that we talk about,
overnight
they didn't get the position they're in by demanding work-life balance, right? So it's okay. It's okay to demand work-life balance, but then it's okay to be alright with a certain position as well. You can't have everything in life. It's a trade-off all the time.
Absolutely.
The more you invest, the more dividends you reap. It's also very simple to understand. I saw this podcast from another person who talked about in Pakistan there's a habit of parents not listening to their kids. Right, and it's been a reality for a lot of us, when we were young, बोलते थे बच्चा है, बच्चे को क्या पता, बच्चा क्या समझ रखता है. Well, parents need to realize the kids have changed. Internet. I have a daughter, she's 6 years old and she's doing things that I could have never imagined myself doing. And I think back on my child, I was like, wow, what kind of a person this is.
I swear.
I wasn't even this aware when I was of her age, right? And that change needs to come. And that person gave an example of a farmer कि जब किसान अपने बीज को बोछता है ना, तो वो उसकी ज़िंदगी है. उस बीज को कुछ भी खराबी या कोई भी डैमेज नहीं आना चाहिए, वरना वो किसी की भी जान ले लेगा अगर किसी ने उसकी बीज को नुकसान पहुंचाया. So kids are like the seeds of tomorrow, so it's very important for the parents of today to realize the world has changed and the younger generation will make the world tomorrow. So it's good to train them. I won't say train them, but help them understand the world in a better way. Understand yourself as a parent, as an elder, but also understand the kind of world they are going to grow up in, so that when they enter the, let's say, the professional life or even the higher education life, they are better prepared.
ऐसा ही है.
जो एक dissonance आती है ना, वो इसलिए अभी आती है कि a lot of younger people were not really made aware, what kind of life will they expect when they enter university or when they enter professional life. वो insight नहीं दी जाती बहुत जगहों पे. ठीक है. So जब बंदा एक unknown situation में आता भी ना, so they function the way they know best, right? Which is sometimes okay, but sometimes it just doesn't gel in.
True. ट्रू. एंड आपने एक बहुत ज़बरदस्त बात की कि लेकिन आई वांट टू ऐड टू इट कि आई नोटिस दिस again I'm not that experienced in terms of working, still a student, but मैंने एक चीज़ notice की है कि there are two types of groups and not this is not limited to generation. There are two types of people in the workforce particularly. एक होता है वो जो कि अगर वो लेट्स से अगर 50,000 रुपये कंपनी से ले रहे हैं ना तो वो 10 लाख रुपए का काम करें. दे पैशनेट अबाउट वर्क. Money to them comes secondary. Work, learning, development, growth to them comes first. Also, like the culture of the organization कि यार politics ना हो, friendly environment हो, थोड़ा nurturing हो, वो लोग prefer करते हैं. एक तरफ आता है वो ग्रुप जो कि कहता है यार बस मैं काम करूं, मुझे 50,000 रुपये मिल रहे हैं, मैं 10 बजे आया हूँ, मैं 5 बजे तक अब हो गया नहीं हुआ जो करना है कफारी कराओ और मैं घर जाऊँ अपना रिलैक्स करूँ. तो ये मैंने चीज़ें देखी है इन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. और ये वाली जो सेकंड बिट है ना लोगों का, वो एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में ग्रो करते हैं. जो फर्स्ट वाली है ना वो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हॉप करते हैं. लाइक व्हाट डू यू थिंक दिस इज am I right या डू यू थिंक कि नहीं ऐसा नहीं है?
Yeah, I don't really have never looked at it that way. कि जो easy going है वो एक ही ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में ग्रो करते हैं और जो हार्ड वर्किंग है वो आर मोर bothered about what they're doing, what they're learning, and they hop organizations. I think people change organizations for many reasons. I've worked in many organizations in my life, right? And when you say it that way, I do put myself in the first group. But you know, I like to think कि एक इंसान जो है ना वो जो वर्क ओनरशिप जिसे हम कहते हैं ना वो अंदर से आती है.
ऐसा ही है.
ठीक है, वो मैं आपके अंदर डाल नहीं सकता. मतलब I can sit you down, I can talk to you and I can help you understand कि you know कि it's on us कि अगर हम पे कोई ट्रस्ट करता है किसी चीज़ के लिए तो you know as a human being, as a good moral human being, it's our responsibility to pay back that trust. ठीक है. And I like to think कि the people that I work with right now and even in the past, you know, I've been able to build that trust with them. Obviously कुछ के साथ शायद नहीं बन पाया होगा. ठीक है, होता है, it's life. But क्या मैं ये कहूँगा कि जो लोग काम को ज़्यादा फोकस करते हैं वो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हॉप करते हैं? Not really, because I have seen certain people in my life and around me, some of them have been colleagues, जिन्होंने एक ही ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में 10-10 साल भी गुजारे and they have grown and they have been some of the hardest workers that I've known as well. Right? They don't slack. They take full ownership of their work and they're committed to it. They have eventually moved on from those organizations, but obviously when they felt that there was nothing left for them to do in that particular organization, right? कभी कभार आप ये भी देखते हो कि ठीक है मैं एक certain tier 2 कंपनी में काम कर रहा हूँ, मुझे tier 1 में जाना है. ठीक है, so you make that jump too. Sometimes opportunities come very randomly और आप 6 महीने में ही move हो जाते हैं, right? So the situation varies, but I don't think I would classify it that way.
There's no correlation. I agree.
I think there's no correlation over there. I think people who take their work very easily can also move organizations as quickly because अगर आपका culture ऐसा है which calls you out, so you know you won't get promoted, you won't get good increments, and then you would switch. I'll tell you. Something happened with me just a couple of, I think 3 weeks ago. So I was taking an interview with the candidate, and when I asked them, you know, how are you looking to move? What's your reason to move? He's like, my fellow colleague got promoted and I did not. Right? So मुझे promotion चाहिए इसलिए मुझे move करना है. मैंने कहा, okay. Did you feel something कि why was he or she promoted and not you? Did you realize कि what had happened? And his answer was कि oh, he got better opportunities than me. And I was like, when you say better opportunities than you, did that person create those opportunities themselves or were it handed over to them on a silver platter? And he was unable to answer that. So a lot of times it is also our bias, perception.
अपना खुद का bias create करते हैं.
But when I was speaking to him, I thought, yeah, this is a lens that even I was stuck at some point in time in my life. मैं देखता था कि यार ये देखो इसको तो काम ही नहीं आता. इसने क्या किया है और इसको जो है वो प्रमोशन मिल गई है या इसको मुझसे बेहतर इंक्रीमेंट मिल गया है. बट ऑनेस्टली आई थॉट अ वेरी डिफरेंट logic over at that point in time, and when I think about it now, maybe I was right, maybe I was wrong, but the fact of the matter is I did not know, because I wasn't judging their work. Someone else was judging their work, so
Yes.
they would know.
Yes.
And if I don't know, it's better I don't comment. No, if I am not satisfied, theek hai yaar, it's your right to be satisfied or not satisfied. And if you feel that you should have been promoted or you should have been rewarded for your work, then you should be confident enough कि यार मैं कहीं भी जाऊंगा ना, मैं करके दिखाऊंगा.
ऐसा ही है.
और आप फिर ये नहीं बोलते कि यार मैं आपके पास आऊंगा तो मुझे ये कंडीशंस चाहिए तो मैं आऊंगा. Then you move because you want growth.
Yes.
You don't demand growth that way.
ऐसा ही है. नहीं होते हैं कुछ, like I agree and that's a very well said point के, and I used to be just like this कि मुझे जो है मैं अपने आप को compare कर रहा था with my peers, my colleagues, ऐसे ही batchmates. वो तो ना marks के लिए तो एक तो it's inbuilt because of our parental system कि यार competition with the neighbor's son, your competition with your cousins and your brothers, like your siblings के अंदर competitions हो जाते हैं. तो वो एक कंपटीशन की एक स्ट्रीक जो है ना, वो इट्स embedded within this. I'm not going to comment about other cultures, but within our culture वो तो बहुत ज़्यादा एक embedded चीज़ है कि आपने compete करना है किसी से. तो when I went into the workforce back in 2020 I started in COVID. तो 2020 एंड के टाइप पे. तो वहाँ पे जो है ना उस वक्त भी मैं ऐसा ही था कि यार ये अगर ऊपर जा रहा है, मैं ज़्यादा काम कर रहा हूँ, ये ऊपर जा रहा है. फिर आई स्विच ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस. आई वाज एन इंटर्न बैक देन, उसके बाद मैं स्विच किया, मैं देखा लोगों को, एंड देन आई स्टार्टेड ग्रोइंग व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड फोकसिंग ऑन माय वर्क. And then in my last organizations before I joined this current organization, there was this boss of mine who saw this behavior. He sent me a meme the other day as well that have now become very, I would say I now have a very high self-esteem in terms of my work. If I think कि I have presented a product जो कि अच्छा है ना, सही है, then no one in the world can convince that this is a bad thing. But if I'm not satisfied and if you believe कि यार this is awesome, I would still be like not my best work, I would want to do better. So I started competing with myself and he sat me down. He said कि यार तुम बहुत अच्छे हो, तुम्हें promotion नहीं दे रहा, लेकिन I'll give you more responsibilities and I will give you an opportunity to prove it to yourself कि you can, if you can do this. So I was a junior executive and he said कि you would be equivalent to a manager. Would you want the opportunity? I was like, okay, more work, not a lot of salary, but it's a challenge. I would want that, and I took it and I did it for a year, 7 months before I made a switch to this current organization. And at the time of my life, I got respect. I feel like very important in terms of working culture. A lot of people earn a lot of money, but होता है यार, पॉलिटिक्स करते हैं, एक दूसरे की टांग खींचते हैं, जलालत इन दिस इंडस्ट्री, स्पेशली इन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो कि काफ़ी, अगर आपकी 50 लोगों की ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है तो इतनी पॉलिटिक्स नहीं है. आपकी जैसे 100 से ऊपर जाती है ना, पॉलिटिक्स शदीद है, क्योंकि नीचे जो है वो 50 लोगों की एक फौज है और ऊपर सिर्फ 4 पोजीशन है जिसको आपने जो है वो टॉप C लेवल या एक्सको आपने भरने. तो वो चीज़ है ना, क्रिएट्स अ लॉट ऑफ कॉम्पिटिशन एंड अ लॉट ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स. एंड आई फील लाइक हम एज अ जनरेशन, particularly me myself, we overthink a lot as well. सही, तो अगर कोई हमें कुछ कह दे, so I had a colleague of mine, even I thought I'm very sensitive in terms of hearing out to people. People come to me और मुझे कहते हैं यार ये मेरा problem है, and my heart goes out to them कि नहीं यार, I understand your problem. And she came to me and she always had, she was Gen Z obviously, she always had something to vent about. And after some time even I realized कि bro okay, but there has to be another perspective to it as well. So yeah, and then I checked out the other perspective and I was like, that pressure in terms of taking that responsibility and channeling it into energy to focus on her work rather than venting it out to everyone. And she actually, I would say कि maybe got an image of a cry maybe, to be very honest. And वो एक चीज़ है जो कि I feel like in our generation is a lot. तो वो एक है, but yeah.
I'll give you one example. So, because we both work in marketing. हम सब उन ब्रांड्स पे काम करना चाहते हैं जिनको लोग प्यार करते हैं.
बिल्कुल.
Brand, we talk about brand love, and a brand which is loved is so easy to sell. You know, as a marketer, your job is very easy. It's very comfortable. कि अच्छा यार ये तो लोग वैसे ही खरीद लेंगे. तो एक अच्छी सी कैंपेन कर दो और you know वैसे ही सक्सेसफुल मिल जाएगी. It's always difficult to sell the products which people don't love. And this is what people need to understand about themselves. Be the product that people love.
Very well said.
Be the product that people don't love.
Yeah.
You know, so अभी जब तुम मुझे एग्जांपल दे रहे थे about the girl who came to you multiple times to went out, right? So what is happening? You know, what kind of a brand is she creating for herself? She is creating यार कि अच्छा okay ये दोबारा आ गई. Now I'll have to spend 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour just listening to her, just in order to make her feel good. It's okay to vent, you know, because mental health is also at the end of the day very important.
Very important.
But vent in a rational way, vent in ways which are productive. ठीक है, divert your mind towards some activity which is constructive for you. You know, a lot of people do gymming these days just to vent out. गुस्सा निकालते हैं जब में जाके पंचिंग बैग के ऊपर या भागते हैं ट्रेडमिल के ऊपर, साइकिलिंग करते हैं.
ऐसे है.
ठीक है. So there are many ways, there are many healthy ways to vent out your frustration, your anger, your disappointment about something. But if you always go to one person and then you speak a lot, you know, I call it barfing. If you barf all the time without any thought and without any logic, or you're just talking and talking, so you are positioning yourself to become the product that people don't love, and then people will stop buying you.
Yeah.
And what does that translate to? You stop getting considered for promotions. People don't want to work with you. People don't think that you are the right person for their team or for their organizations, you know, as a last step. So be the apple of the world.
Yeah.
ठीक है?
Very well said.
Be the product that people come to buy themselves, you know, and it's very easy. It's not very difficult. I used to teach a course, digital business communications, and initially when I got the chance to do that, I was like, yeah, it's not exciting me here, you know, it's a basic, but that was my first venture into teaching, so I was super excited. Yeah, okay, let's do something about it. And while I was teaching this course, and this was just a couple of years ago, I discovered something very basic, but for me it was completely new. Okay, when two people communicate, it changes everything. But the key is communicating in the right way.
Yeah, clear communication. Yes.
Right. So if I'm talking to you right now today, and if I'm saying things knowing who you are and what kind of person you are and what are you saying in front of me, I have to be absolutely sure of the things that I say, because I don't want to fight with you, I don't want to argue with you, I want to have a constructive conversation with you on this topic that we are discussing today.
Yeah.
Right. But if I had come here with the agenda कि यार Gen Z वाला मुझसे Gen Z के बारे में सवाल कर रहा है, ठीक है, तो ये तो लड़ाई करेगा मुझसे, ये मुझ पे एक्यूजेशन लगाएगा, मुझे बोलेगा यार आपकी जनरेशन समझती नहीं है. बट नहीं, I came here with a very open mind, thinking कि you know कि we'll see where the conversation takes us, and I think it's going very well. And this is a rule that I feel people don't follow. You know, we communicate without thinking. We say things without thinking. We say things with zero filter, which is also fine, but say them to the right people.
Yeah.
ठीक है. I feel कि going to a shrink or going to a psychologist is supremely underrated in our country. And a lot of people have mental challenges, you know, that they find it very difficult to overcome. You know, I wouldn't want to stereotype anyone, but a lot of youngsters today, I feel, do have those challenges, you know, where they don't have the right person to talk to. They feel no one understands them, no one understands their problems, no one understands their challenges. They feel alienated and isolated.
True.
No, and it's okay if you can't find that friend, or if you can't find that mentor or parent or sibling or anyone, maybe try exploring professional help.
I know, I completely agree with your point. And one thing that you said, people need to understand, people need to be very mindful of what they speak, when they speak, and who do they speak to. I feel like there's another problem that is existing, not everywhere. This is not a generational thing, but I've witnessed this more with now generation, that we are now good listeners.
So that is the part of communication,
Yes,
right?
you're not good listeners.
Communication without listening is pointless. You know, it's never one way.
That's it.
Communication by design is two way. If I'm speaking all the time, I'm just broadcasting.
Yeah, absolutely.
ठीक है, I'm not
सुनना
really
जरूरी है, ऐसे ही
communicating.
है. So Hasnain, आप बताएं कि we talked about the challenges that Gen Zs are facing and how organizations are trying to mitigate those challenges in a way that is better for both all the generations and and nurture a productive working culture. In terms of strengths, do you believe that there's any strengths that Gen Zs bring to the table in ways of in terms of ways of working, in terms of technical expertise, or in terms of agile thinking behavior or energy? तो कुछ ऐसा है जो कि that you would want to share, like being a leader of?
Again, I won't really stereotype Gen Z. I think every person is unique, and Gen Z, Gen X, millennial, or whichever. I think every person brings something different to the table. It doesn't really matter how old are you or how young are you. You can be creative, you can be opinionated, you can be strong-minded, and you can be great at what you do, right? Is there something specific to the Gen Z? I haven't seen that. I see them as normal human beings, just like myself.
Yeah.
Difference being they're just younger than me, and they just have to live life more, is what I would say.
ऐसा ही है.
And I'll repeat this, and I won't shy away from the fact that even when I was 23, I used to think I'm at the top of the world. ठीक है कि मुझसे बेहतर कौन है?
कोई दोस्त ऐसा ही है.
ठीक है, मुझे ये चीज़ मिली, मुझे ये चीज़ मिलनी चाहिए, मुझे क्यों नहीं मिल रही? ठीक है. I'll give you a fun example. I had a few university batchmates when I was in my undergrad who weren't really good at their studies. Not that I was a brilliant student myself, but I was better than them at least, right? And 10 years later, they are much more successful than me.
होता है.
Right. And if I have to pinpoint one reason of why they are more successful than me is they were much better communicators than I ever was.
Fair point. होता है, किसी की अपनी strengths होती है.
They were able to project themselves in the most positive way that I did not even imagine myself doing at that time. And I was stuck in that small corner कि यार क्या है ये, क्यों इनके साथ क्यों हो रहा है और मुझे क्यों नहीं वो opportunity मिल रही, और it's very easy to get jealous, and I've been that in my life, right? And I think of myself sometimes as a late bloomer, because I realized a lot of things at a very late stage in my life.
Yeah,
I feel if I had better insight in my younger years, I could have been more successful than I am today even.
Yeah, I agree, and I totally agree with this fact. To each their. I love the fact I'm also a firm believer of individualism. हर बंदा अपना एक यूनिक स्टांस, स्किल सेट, वीकनेस पूरा सॉर्ट लेकर आता है.
बिल्कुल, नो डाउट.
तो वो हर बंदे का अपना होता है, एंड जनरलाइजिंग generations, age groups, genders, any XYZ thing, I feel like it's unfair to the one who's generalizing them and the people who are being generalized.
I even look at it from multiple lenses. So obviously there's the social lens, the world we live in today. It's all about equal rights and equal opportunities for everyone, gender wise, age wise, and etc., ethnicity wise. I sometimes even look at it through a religious lens. Being a Muslim, I've never seen or heard any religious scripture, the Holy Quran or any hadith or anything that's like कि मर्द जो है वो औरत से बेहतर है, काला जो है वो गोरे से बेहतर है, so on and so forth.
True.
या बड़ा छोटे से बेहतर है. ये मैंने कहीं लिखा हुआ सुना नहीं है.
सही बात है.
ठीक है.
Agreed.
So my religion doesn't teach me that, the world doesn't teach me that. So if I think like that, then there is something wrong with me, not the world.
True. Very true. Because then okay, so I would want to ask you कि like again as you said कि to each their own, हर किसी का अपना होता है. There is no like you would like to generalize stuff, but फिर भी for the sake of conversation, and a lot of people who are like my generation, they're starting this entire thing. So in terms of that, in terms of entering into the workforce, any aspirations that you would want to throw towards our viewers? Okay, what should they do? What should they learn? How should they carry themselves? And like, किस तरह से how should they behave in a workforce? How can they get the best experience, grow, and obviously success at the end?
I'll put two things at the forefront. One is professionalism and discipline. I feel we as a country lack discipline. It's not a generation. I think people of all ages, we don't care for just time. We don't care कि यार तो क्या हो गया. We take a lot of things for granted, and we feel that it's not so important कि हम ही आगे बढ़ के इज्जत दे
ऐसे ही
जब तक दूसरा हमें इज्जत नहीं देता. ठीक है. So I think discipline is something that we could really hope to aspire for. And I think professionalism कि यार whatever we do, छोटा काम बड़ा काम, CEO हूँ, क्लर्क हूँ, इंटर्न हूँ, जो भी काम कर रहे हो ना यार दिल से करो और पूरी ओनरशिप के साथ करो.
True.
ठीक है. And I would give this advice to anyone who would come to me with or want my 2 cents on them कि यार कि what can I do to make myself better, and I will say this again and again.
This is important. Yeah, you're right. Discipline, professionalism, extremely important. In the workforce, and has helped. As I told you, मेरा अपना experience जो है ना, it started off very aggressive. So when I've interviewed to a lot of organizations, वो कहते हैं यार तुम फौरन भाग जाते हो, and I used to get very offended by the fact कि यार मैं भाग जाता हूँ, मैं organization hop करता हूँ, I've changed 3, but I have my reasons. So stop generalizing, putting me कि यार मैं Gen Z हूँ तो मैं भाग जाता हूँ. I saw growth, I saw opportunity, monetary benefits. Maybe my boss was not good in my previous organization. There's a lot of things that come into play, when a person decides to shift their jobs. No one gives you the right कि यार अगर मैं सिर्फ young हूँ और आप बड़े हैं तो जो है वो आप एक लेबल लगा दी यार ये Gen Z है तो ये तो हॉपर ही है. और मेरे रेज्यूमे देख के ना बहुत सारे लोग ये कहते हैं कि यार ये तो भाग जाता है, 6 महीने में भी 1.5 साल में शिफ्ट कर लिया, 6 महीने. It pisses me off, and you're very extremely right. It goes both ways. People should understand Gen Z better. It is important to individualize people. Everyone has their own strengths, weaknesses, behaviors, and everyone needs to be nurtured according to their own dynamics. And same goes for our generation, understanding where everyone else is coming from. हम भी कुछ ना कुछ तो करते हैं जो कि डिस्टर्ब करता है, तो इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट कि यार हम जो है वी कंट्रोल चैनल इन अ वे जो कि पॉजिटिविटी प्रोजेक्ट करे, एंड दैट्स ट्रू. सो एंड that is it. Is there any advice that you would want to give everyone? You already gave discipline.
I think that's all I can say. I'm not the most knowledgeable person in the world, but I like to help out anyone and everyone I can.
Yes.
And I think finding inner peace is most important thing. For some people that is money, for some people that is fame, for others it's just a good 8 hours of sleep every night. And I am that person. If I can get my 8 hours of sleep, on a weekday,
I feel like that is the most important.
I think I would be a much more happier person today.
I agree. Sleep is something in the advertising industry, I tell you. Late nights and whatnot, but it's fun. Having late nights and have that energy.
It is what attracts you. In another one of my jobs there it was dull, but everyone has a calling.
That's true. So with that, it's a wrap, folks. Thank you for turning in to ZABFM Digital, and I hope you had a great time.